Hello SOSW viewers, it's Bad Batch co-host Jedi Knight Luke here. First and foremost, my sincerest apologies for the long delay in continuing these reviews. Simply put, we've had some unexpected technical difficulties which meant that recording sessions haven't been the smoothest. Secondly, I want to forewarn viewers that this Bad Batch video, due to special circumstances, required a change in presentation style. If you've followed SOSW's Bad Batch reviews since Season 1, you may remember the original presentation style was such that for every individual subject that was being discussed, whether it was minor or major, the visuals you would see on screen matched exactly what was being spoken about. This was later replaced by the storyboard presentation style that you've seen in every Bad Batch review post-Season 1. However, in this video, Henson and I get into a lengthy discussion about the return of a fan-favourite character from TCW in Season 3, Episode 9 of the Bad Batch. So this particular subject required the return of the old presentation style, which occurs at the time code you'll be seeing on the screen right now. There are also sources that pertain to the special subject, all of which can be found in the description below. Without any further ado, thank you all for your patience, and please enjoy the video. Greetings SOSW viewers, it is Jedi Knight Luke here, back again with...
the always dependable Captain Henson.
And as promised, we are continuing the Bad Batch Season 3 reviews. We did episodes 4 through 6 in the previous recording. This time we're going to do episodes 7, 8 and 9. So starting off with the first of those episodes, Extraction. Following on from the last episode, we see that the hero's remote base has been reduced to rubble. The Shadow Trooper patrols the surface while the heroes escape the spire with an underground tunnel. The Imperial Recovery Strike Team arrives and Wolf admonishes the Shadow Trooper for destroying the spire. Wolf divides his forces into two teams. One goes with Wolf to infiltrate the base's remains from the platform below, and the other team are ordered to hold their current position. Detonators are also primed to seal the escape passage. The Shadow Trooper goes down the escape tunnel and Wolf orders that the escape passage be sealed. Wolf's team pursue and attempt to block the heroes, while Crosshair takes on the Shadow Trooper in a brief shootout situation. Unfortunately though, the Shadow Trooper escapes. The hero's escape is cut short when a shot from the Shadow Trooper damages one of the engines to their ship. The hunt continues on the ground and the heroes stun their fallen brothers. The Shadow Trooper kills Nemec and Crosshair makes himself the assailant's main target. They trade blaster fire again and even some hand-to-hand blows. However, water engulfs the lower levels while they fight. The Shadow Trooper almost kills Crosshair, but Hauser and the others save him. They've now reached the extraction point, but Wolf's forces stop them. Rex and Wolf have an unexpected heart-to-heart, albeit briefly. Echo arrives and Wolf lets the heroes go. The Shadow Trooper struggles back to land, and the heroes are in hyperspace. Hunter and Rex tell each other that they can't take the Empire down under the current circumstances, and Rex tells Hunter that the best chance they have to keep Omega safe is to discover her importance to the Empire, thus ending the episode.
So, a continuation of the previous episode. Seeing this Shadow Trooper constantly at our heroes' throats, pretty ruthless. The action piece in the tower was really cool. You know, I've said it before, but what the fuck are the clone commandos in this series? It's like, if you've ever seen them, one, they just look cool, but then also, oh, they're the special ops of clone troopers. Like, these are the guys you send when the mission is like, oh, really bad, really dire, really serious. But then, like, just throughout the show, I swear, they're even more pathetic than, like, your rank and file clones. So, you know, we have this, like, one clone commando here, and it's like, well, what is he even doing here? Like, what the fuck is he doing here? But that aside, having Crosshairs fight CX2 was really nice, and seeing Crosshairs come on top and seeing just how durable the Shadow Troopers are. And then also at the end, getting that interaction between Wolf and Rex, and seeing that when it comes to clones, they're more willing to bend the rules when it's for their own. Really makes you wonder why the chips that were planted into their heads didn't have them always fucking loyal, but yeah. So yeah, overall, a nice continuation of the previous episode, and really building up this clone subplot that we've been seeing throughout this show. Whether or not that's gonna culminate in anything, we'll have to see. I mean, we'll see if Wolf ever shows up again in this show. So yeah.
I really enjoyed this episode. It was very interesting actually to see that because the Shadow Troopers are completely devoid of true personality, it causes the now Imperial forces, particularly those, however, who are still clone troopers, to not have the fondest view of them and make them rather incompatible teammates in situations like this. The heroes fighting to escape was great. I loved the battles between Crosshair and the Shadow Trooper, the one-on-one. I actually did think Crosshair was going to die. Crosshair nearly dies by the Shadow Trooper trying to drown him, pretty much, when the water erupts, which, considering Bad Batch is supposed to be a more family-friendly show by Star Wars' standards, that was a surprise to me. Obviously, Crosshair doesn't die, but I think it's worth noting. I honestly thought that the interaction between Wolf and Rex was going to end the exact same way that Rex's attempt to reason with Jesse did in TCW Season 7, where they'd falter for a moment, but then Wolf would snap back into wanting to kill Rex. But surprisingly, that's not what happened. And the final scene with Hunter and Rex saying, we can't take the Empire down, and the best chance you've got at keeping Omega safe is to find out why the Empire are after her. Yeah, that was a much needed scene, I think. Anything more to say, Henson?
No, pretty much it.
Okay, in that case, let's move on to episode 8, Bad Territory. The episode begins on Pabu, with Omega awaiting news from Echo. The group gets a transmission from Fi. She tells them some bounty hunters have been retrieving M-count targets, quote-unquote, for the Empire's experiments. Yeah, we'll get to that in due time. Omega and Hunter recall Fennec Shand and think she might know something about the M-count targets, although Fi guesses Shand won't give them that information for free. The heroes have also noticed Crosshair's trembling hand now, and Hunter asks Omega to have Crosshair get his hand examined. Hunter and Wrecker head off-world and corner Fennec into a conversation. As Fi warned them, Shand expects a fee for the desired information. The brothers make themselves Shand's pawns, effectively, to help her with a bounty. One Sylar Saris, the slayer of Ordor Iris. He murdered a couple of Haxian Brood bosses, and Fennec is the latest bounty hunter tasked with capturing him. They make it to the planet and hire a boat to go down the stream. They disarm a bunch of underwater explosives, and several beasts attempt to kill them, though the brothers and Fennec fight them off. They reach Sylar's hideout, and Sylar initially catches the heroes off guard, though they work together and capture him. Back on Pabu, Omega introduces Crosshair to meditation to help the emotional and psychological aspects of his healing. Back with the brothers, Fennec promises she'll get the information on the M-count targets. She then contacts her anonymous client and, along with the bounty, alludes to the location of the Bad Batch, thus ending the episode.
This was definitely a diversion episode, and one could make the argument this is probably the first time we've had real filler in this season. Because in terms of character work, the B plot pushes some of the characters forward while the A plot doesn't really do that. But It's fun seeing Hunter and Wrecker together, especially having to deal with this situation where they don't want to do it, but they have to. And, having Wrecker, like, really not want to go into the swamp. That was fun. And getting a reminder that, like, this team does have skills beyond loud, big fights. Like, they can do the slow, methodical, patient approach, that whole sequence where Hunter and Wrecker are, cutting the mines loose. So Fennec and the boat can move forward. And also seeing them try to take down this slippery foe. And, it was nice seeing Fennec Shand again. It's notable to have the bounty hunter be her because these guys already have a past relationship with her. And in terms of the Omega and Crosshair plot, I suppose this is what justifies Hunter and Wrecker going on the more filler A plot because, I mean, otherwise, we wouldn't really have some like downtime for Omega trying to help Crosshair, getting definitive proof that the handshaking is a completely mental thing. And as for who this person Fennec is contacting is, thankfully we don't have to wait like an episode just to see what that's about.
We'll get there when we get there. I really enjoyed this episode. Seeing Fennec again, didn't expect that in the slightest. Honestly, I didn't. And I get bounty hunters are focused on making a profit, but she is a bit selfish, reducing the brothers to pawns and having them shoulder all the crap for her so she can just take the reward no problem.
Honestly, I wish we got more of that. Have bounty hunters that, can work with the heroes, but are still, at the end of the day, doing this for payment. Like, you would never see someone like Cad Bane doing something like this.
No, but he'd be the one driving the operation, if it was him.
Yes, but I am glad we have this sort of character, and I wish we would get it more often.
I'm not expecting bounty hunters to be the equivalent of your average person in terms of empathy. For me, at least, a little bit of humanity would have balanced out the stone cold side of her a bit more. In terms of the Haxian brood being referenced, as far as I'm aware, that is a Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor reference. The reason for the bounty on Saris's head is that he slayed a couple of Haxian brood bosses. And seeing the brothers struggle against Saris when they actually fought him, it's proof that they're strong, but they're not invincible. And as for the B-plot, the Omega and Crosshair stuff, I actually wish we got a little bit more to see Crosshair go through this rehabilitation of sorts. Although I think the end of the episode makes it clear that he's getting back on track with that, so either way, the desired outcome is successful. And as for the client, well, we'd best not waste any more time. You ready, Henson?
There will be things to say.
Ah, yes. Yes, indeed. Oh boy. Finally, episode 9, The Harbinger. This episode begins back on Pabu with the Bad Batch awaiting contact from Fennec regarding the M-count targets information. Batcher senses a strange presence in one of the caverns, and a Sarge Ventress. Yes, you heard that name right, people. A Sarge Ventress ends up startling Omega. As it turns out, Ventress was Fennec's client. She tells them that the M count is a measure of one's force sensitivity. Yes, people, this Bad Batch episode literally caters to the OT fanboys who have complained about the term midichlorians as though it's a curse word for the last 25 years. Thanks, Lucasfilm. Not. Due to Omega's pleading, Ventress tests her force sensitivity. She forces Omega to do a couple of tests, and the brothers realize it's Ventress in their company. After which, Ventress takes blasters out of the equation and schools the brothers in hand-to-hand combat, with a helping of the Force. Omega retrieves the blossom that Ventress instructed her to retrieve for her second test, just as Ventress brandishes her lightsaber against the brothers, though she lets them live. The next day, Ventress and Omega initiate Omega's final test for force sensitivity out at sea. Ventress encourages Omega to connect with her surroundings and demonstrates how it should be done, but a massive sea creature interrupts the proceedings. The beast grabs Omega, Ventress cuts her free, and the brothers aggravate the creature. After they fire from the top, Ventress pacifies the beast with the Force, and the heroes return to the island. Ventress concludes Omega isn't Force sensitive. She warns the brothers that they and Omega should leave Pabu. When Hunter asks Ventress if she's concerned about the Empire hunting her, she retorts with the claim that she has a few lives left. The clones spot Ventress flying off, and the episode ends.
Okay, so first off, gotta say this. I don't think the term M count was used to cater to OT fanboys. I think it really was just a matter of if you just say metachlorians, everyone's gonna know what the fuck you're talking about. But if you say M count, well, a lot of people are still gonna know what the fuck you're talking about, but the average Joe isn't. So I think it was just a mystery thing. Because, like, the fact that they're even using M count, as in metachlorians, as in the microscopic beings that help us communicate with the Force, they're still acknowledging and taking from what was established in the prequel trilogy with that. So if they're trying to cater to OT fanboys, they're failing miserably. Because Ventress even describes it as, oh, an M count, a measurement of force potential. It's like, that's how they were described as in the prequel trilogy. So I disagree with my co-host on that front. But gotta talk about this since we haven't discussed Dark Disciple on its own yet. But I am not a fan of giving Ventress hair. I thought it looked horrible in the Dark Disciple animatics, as well as, the cover for the book itself and whatever illustrations we've gotten. You can tell that character was designed with baldness in mind because the hair just does not fit.
Especially given the style that they went for with the hair, it's literally a lopside. Like, you couldn't even be bothered to give her a full head of hair.
I mean, to be fair, that is a hairstyle people have, but
I know, but, well,
admittedly, it's not a hairstyle I'm a fan of. But overall, just Ventress should not have been given hair. I would argue the Night Sisters shouldn't have been given hair. Although, admittedly, the hair fit with them because they were designed with that in mind, while Ventress was bald since her initial concept art as the villain for Attack of the Clones. But, it's not the worst thing ever. It's just something I wish they didn't do. Having her be bald was a nice way for her to stand out because, I mean, you don't really have a lot of bald female characters.
in Star Wars, specifically.
I mean, in general, but for the purposes of Star Wars, yeah, you don't have a lot of it in Star Wars. I mean, I know she's not human, and I think baldness was just a part of her species. Don't quote me on that, but regardless, one of her unique traits is gone with the hair. You could have also had the hair be darker because I think the blonde hair and the white skin doesn't, especially the light blonde. Regardless, not the biggest fan of that, but a lot of this episode is just building up to what we already know. That yes, Omega has serious force potential. No shit. We already knew that. Ever since they introduced the idea of M count. So, yeah. I will say this, though. It was nice seeing Ventress and her post-villain arc. We saw a bit of that in TCW and got more of it in Dark Disciple. But, it was an interesting way to take her character within TCW. So it's cool to see more of it here and seeing how much she's changed. I also find it interesting how she showed more competence and skill in that one fight against the Bad Batch than she did in the entirety of TCW. It's yeah.
Well, Ventress wasn't the only combatant, and funnily enough, not the only villain that
Yeah, that
TCW
was just
felt
the symptom of the
drastically
fact that,
underpowered.
yeah, that was just a symptom of the larger problem of the villains needing to lose because it's a Saturday morning cartoon. So good guys win, bad guys lose. They can never fucking win. But her relationship with Omega was interesting to see. Clearly, she does care about this person on some level, but she's not like overly emotional about things. Now, we got that like line at the end. Oh, I still have a few lives left. So, or should I save that, let you say your thoughts, and then we can go like head on with the Dark Disciple stuff?
See, this is the thing. Because Ventress is the VIP for this episode, it's really difficult to talk about this episode in broad terms because of how key a role Ventress plays. So, I don't know, should I try to, and then we go into the problems with Ventress being here? Or do you want me to just dive right in?
I would say try to give your thoughts separated from Ventress being back, and then we can focus on that for the last bit of this video. I think that would be a good note or a good
Okay,
climax for
fair.
the video.
Okay, fair enough then. So, this episode as a whole is not terrible. Taken on its own merits, it matches the quality of most, if not all, other Bad Batch episodes that precede it. It ticks the necessary boxes. We get, obviously, the brothers working together more, seeing a more compassionate side to Ventress, even taking into account that this is the Disney canon interpretation of her. I don't get it. Because even if you go by TCW, she didn't exactly have the most empathy for the average citizen. Maybe that would have changed a little bit after Dooku betrayed her, but the fact that she willingly mentors Omega and doesn't whip the crap out of her for, doing things wrong, or just because Ventress is Ventress, and she's not exactly a stranger to blowing a fuse. The fact that she can supposedly be serene enough to try and mentor a child in the ways of the Force, to me, doesn't make sense, given who she is. And apparently being skilled enough in the Force to tame that sea creature, it's an impressive feat to be sure, but again, to me at least, it's too virtuous of a feat for someone like Ventress, even when you consider the fact that we're only a couple of years past when Dooku betrayed her. So, realistically, if you're in the know on Ventress's original incarnation, you will be scratching your head watching her in this and acting the way she acts. But, in terms of the episode itself, it's fine and an enjoyable watch. But now can we get into it?
I would just say I like the scene where the Bad Batch figure out who Ventress is, this like big bad of the Clone Wars. Even though, she was, I mean, she did kill and cause a lot of damage, but, overall, she was more so treated as a joke by our heroes than anything in TCW. I would also say her acting more serene, I don't think is that out of character given just how far removed she is from the villainous sociopath she started out as. I think like based on what we were seeing with her character, like her time as a bounty hunter, when she tricked a person who had sent her on this bounty to free a girl, to reunite this girl with her brother. We clearly saw that Ventress was gearing towards being more of a fairly decent person. But yes, on to the Dark Disciple stuff.
Oh.
So, yes, we were first shown Ventress in the trailer for season 3. And that, of course, opened up a whole bunch of questions, like, given the fact that this is Disney Star Wars we're talking about, what the fuck does that mean for a Dark Disciple? The book based on 2 arcs, 8 episodes in total. A book that was really fucking important given that it closed Ventress's story arc along with Quinlan Voss's arc. So, what do we have here? As I mentioned earlier, the only reference to Dark Disciple we get is Ventress's, oh, I still got a few lives left, which is in reference to the fact that she died in Dark Disciple. And that book ends with Quinlan Voss, Kenobi's also there, taking her body to Dathomir, putting it into a pool somewhere in the village. And if I'm remembering correctly, the water changes color and they hear the voices of Night Sisters, really hammering home the fact that Ventress is fucking dead. So here we have a case where there is an acknowledgement in the episode itself that she did die. Of course, we don't have the answers as to how the fuck she's alive and what she's been doing since then. Now, I want to bring up what supervising director and executive producer Brad Rao had to say. This might have been before this episode came out, but when questioned about Ventress being in here, he said, "The events of Dark Disciple are true. We are aligning right with them. You might not get every answer in the Bad Batch for how that comes about, but just rest assured you probably will at some point." So probably is the key word. So it's possible that they do have a plan, but like, who knows? We still don't have any word on what the next animated series is going to be. So for the time being, this isn't a retcon. We just don't have the answers yet. And one could make the argument that who even fucking knows if we're going to get an answer to it? That's reason enough to be concerned, but I would have preferred she stayed dead because characters coming back in Star Wars, you can do interesting things with it, like Darth Maul. And because we're dealing with magic here, it had already been established that Night Sister magic is like OP as all fuck. We'll see if we ever get an explanation as to how and why she's still here. Like, why was she resurrected and like seemingly no one else? So yeah.
So many things that I want to say, and yet physically can't say them as of the time of recording. Well, at least not in the way that I would want to say them. I do just want to go very, very quickly back to the M count thing for a second. So you brought up the counter-argument that the M count could have simply just been an acknowledgement of midichlorians. I can see where you're coming from now that you say it. However, I do still have my concerns that they referred to the midichlorians like that. You know for a fact there will be OT fanboys that complain and say, "Oh, they're referencing the midichlorians." You know some people will do that, right?
I mean, obviously, but the fact that in TCW we got an entire arc focusing on the Chosen One prophecy, which was also something that was criticized by some of the fans. Like the fact that they're acknowledging metachlorians in like any way here speaks to the fact that they aren't trying to cater to OT fanboys. That's just they're utilizing an aspect of Star Wars.
Of course, they have every right to use it. I'm just worried that certain fans will take it the wrong way and kick up the stink about it all over again.
Which is why the M count term initially made me raise an eyebrow. But, yeah.
Did the earliest stories from the new canon not exist anymore as far as present-day Lucasfilm is concerned? I mean, what the...
For anyone who has not read Dark Disciple, it's a book that takes place relatively late into the Clone Wars, and after the Jedi High Council witness a holo recording of Dooku killing a bunch of innocent civilians on a given world, they decide that this is the final straw, and they have an inclination to assassinate Dooku. So they dispatch Quinlan as the man for the job to infiltrate Dooku's inner circle and kill him. If this in any way sounds familiar to die-hard Star Wars fans who are familiar with the original Clone Wars multimedia project, it's basically because along the way Dark Disciple ends up doing its own reinterpretation slash rip-off of a bunch of key moments from Quinlan's arc in those comics where he tries to get close to Dooku. Along the way, though, in this version of events, he meets Ventress, he gets educated to some degree on the Night Sister culture, and the two end up falling in love. Towards the end of the book, Ventress is given a chance at redemption by the Jedi High Council, and the two of them have one final confrontation with Dooku at the end of the book, in which she dies via an act of self-sacrifice, taking the full brunt of a torrent of Force lightning from Dooku to protect Quinlan. On principle alone, this Bad Batch episode should not have happened this way. Ventress should not have come back. She should have stayed dead. Therefore, if you are knowledgeable enough on the new canon in that way, you would have probably caught along to the "I still have a few lives left" line and realised what Lucasfilm was doing. Trying to take a dig at those in the know and get away with it, Lucasfilm? I don't think so.
I mean, like I said, I think the whole "I have a few lives left" was more so just, hey, audience, if you know, you know. But if you don't know, you're not going to be confused, because that line is, well, it's just a cool line said by this character. Now, I would like to point this out in regards to the placement of the Dark Disciple arc itself. Now, I gotta say thanks to David Wadey for doing his videos on the unfinished stuff for TCW. As I said, what we refer to as Dark Disciple is actually two arcs. Dark Disciple, the first half, and the second half was saving Voss. So, the first arc, that would have been, the second arc of Season 7. Season 8, what would have been the final season, we would have had the saving Voss arc at the start. So basically what I'm saying is, the events of the latter half of the book are taking place really close to the end of the war. In Season 8, we would have had 5 arcs, and the Siege of Mandalore arc taking place during the movie itself. So really, like 4 arcs before Revenge of the Sith. Remind me, Luke, how much time has passed between the start of Bad Batch and now?
According to the Bad Batch Season 3 Wikipedia page, apparently the third season is entirely set in 18 BBY, meaning that all 3 seasons of Bad Batch have taken place in the span of 1 year.
That makes sense. So we really only have like a year, 2 at the most, have passed since Ventress would have died in Dark Disciple. So not a big window. Who knows? This might even be a story we get in one of these Tales miniseries. Hopefully we don't have to wait 10 years to get the answer. Going back on track here, I don't necessarily have an issue with bringing Ventress back. I'd rather they not. But, at the very least, they aren't throwing Dark Disciple out. Almost as if, continuity matters.
Even if Dark Disciple isn't being all out retconned, they've still flipped 2 fingers up at it, no matter how they justify Ventress coming back. So yeah, on principle, I fucking hate this. And if you can believe it, Henson, I am now finally at the same place you were by the time of the Kenobi series 2 years ago. So I am
can't
now in
believe
this...
it was this of all things that finally did it.
There is a certain other thing that's done that, but that's not relevant for this
At least in terms of Ventress and Dark Disciple, clearly enough of a shit is given for them to acknowledge the fact that, yes, we know that book happened. It does still matter. Now, in an alternate universe, perhaps Brad Rowe would have said Dark Disciple was merely just a version of events. Just because that book happened doesn't mean Ventress really died. We never saw it on screen, so, it doesn't count. That aside, I believe I've said all that I can say on the matter.
Shall we wrap this up now?
So, in conclusion, a lot more to chew on with these 3 episodes. I think they did a good job at pushing forward, and even when we do get more fillery content, the characters are still engaging enough so that, you don't care too much. And at this point, we're more than
60%
halfway
there.
through the season, and we just keep pushing the plot forward. I think it can be said that finding out that Omega is in fact force sensitive wasn't the best feeling for me, because I'm someone who really doesn't like when that shit happens. But we'll see if anything's actually done with that, and if it's not, then well, I guess we'll just have to wait for a future Omega appearance to see if anything's actually fucking done with that. So yeah.
For me personally, Ventress aside, these 3 episodes are solid. The core characters, of course, are developed further. As I say, seeing most of the old team in sync again is great, and Henson already said it, but I feel the exact same way, so I'm going to say it as well. I don't want Omega's force sensitivity to become a thing, because we've already had non-force sensitives become force sensitive after the fact in other things. If you know, you know. And that's stretching it for me. I don't want that. But apart from that, overall, as I say, solid episodes. We've got 6 more episodes to discuss. So until next time, this is Jedi Knight Luke signing off, and may the Force be with you.
And this is Captain Henson signing off.